Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Pro AV Today. I am your host, Ben Thomas. Today, we're having a conversation around one of my favorite things in the industry. And, when you look at a lot of people's introduction for the first time to the AV community, it's through live events and productions and theatrical plays and Christmas services. And, not only do those happen on like house of worship stages and places that are more permanent venues, but that tends to happen in places like public parks and at concerts and at festivals and venues that are more non-traditional, maybe semi-permanent. So I said, look, there's so many different things that we have to worry about, whether it's the installation side or whether it's the touring and semi-portable side. I can't keep my head straight, but I know a guy who can, and that's Pierre-Luc Romprey from Stageline. Pierre, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the offer.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things kind of coming out of LDI recently that I think that we all start to realize as a community is that largely, and I'm speaking more from the installation side, largely we don't give the entertainment and traveling and touring world enough credit because they pull things off on a regular basis that sometimes take us 6 to 7 months, that take them 6 to 7 hours. And, it really kind of recharged my mind for a second. And when it comes to both of those, specifically both of those worlds, right, the installation and entertainment side versus maybe that semi-permanent side, what are some of the major challenges that you're seeing these days as those paths kind of go further and further apart?
Well, the major challenge for 2022 has definitely been transportation. Like the scarcity of drivers out there in the market is just making things really, really challenging and difficult for all of our logistics teams out there. Like we juggle with a lot of balls in the air, so a lot of moving parts. And so for certain events where you have 30 trucks drive into a site, trying to coordinate this is the new, it seems simple, but it's the newest challenge that we're all facing post-COVID, the lack of drivers. It's insane, right?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that you bring that up, right? Because that doesn't only affect the large scale tours. That affects the, sometimes those small scale events, right? Those pop up local events that happen on, major holidays here in the States and obviously up north where you guys are as well. But, it scales up, right? And that's one of the challenges that you see kind of in the industry right now, not only from an entertainment side, but really globally, right? Whether it's supply chain, whether it's availability of product, things like that. But wanted to kind of dig in on one element that I feel like you guys could speak pretty directly to, right? And it's the importance of the stage in these touring semi-permanent productions and the temporary installations, because not only is the stage the place, right, where you're worried about sight lines, and obviously you want to elevate the bands and the performances and things like that, but it's literally now the crux of the entire production because you're worried about things like flying the PA, flying all the lighting systems. Heck, LED walls these days are bigger and heavier than they've ever been. You're worried about all those kind of things. How important is it to have a meaningful stage at these events, assuming you can get a driver for it? How important is the stage at these events?
Well, I think it's the centerpiece, right? So without the stage, there's no such thing as a concert, or at least it makes it really harder. So I think production has changed where like the shift to really high quality staging, reliable staging vendors, and also the importance of booking fast. That has changed a lot in the past, I'd say 5 to 10 years. We've seen some major challenges since 2012 with different accidents, very unfortunate, and unfortunately also preventable in certain cases. So this has put a lot more pressure on the staging vendors to come up with better products, better training for their crew and their staff on site, a better coordination with all the different parties involved in the event. So it's not only the staging, but it's what it is that you install on it and what is the impact of all these added elements. So all of these things has become really key to making the event happen in a safe fashion.
We'll dig into kind of the safety and security side a little bit more later, but I really like what you said when it comes to availability and accessibility of gear and technology, right? And one of the challenges naturally that comes out of that is this idea now where you're working with so many different vendors for the same show, the same installation a lot of times. Talk about the importance of that cross-vendor collaboration for a second.
Well, I think it's key. Well, because it's at the center of creating a great experience for the fans and the people attending the event. And it's not only the looks and feels of it, but it's the how it's put together, how safe it is, and that becomes what a key communication between all parties. Someone has to take the responsibility for that, and it's quite often on the technical side of things with the event and the promoter, but it can also be on the staging world where we're taking the lead for the approval of everything that is installed under our structure. Because at the end of the day, we're the building in which the show happens. So we have a certain level of control onto the different elements that are being brought to the event. So we need to know, well, as you all know, so the weights and like the methods of installation, and need to have a look at it. On our end, we need to approve all rigging plans for everything that is being installed in our structure prior to the event. And we have on-site professionals and, well, certified technicians that we call them in our world, that are there to verify the integrity of this installation.
That's a great point too, and I think one of the things that, especially on like the installation and technology side, that we can forget as a community is that there's the entire creative side, right? That says, we want to fly these LED walls, we want all this scenic, we want to be able to show this at this resolution, and at the end of the day, that has to absolutely go through, especially on a touring show. That has to end up going through someone like you guys or the rigger on site. And how do you work with those creative departments kind of specifically to help make sure that everybody stays safe?
That's a good question. It's actually a great question. Well, I guess it comes down to communication and to the relationships. And so the relationship with the promoter, the level of confidence that they have in their different vendors. And and at the end of the day, I keep beating the safety card, but that's really what it comes all down to, because everybody wants to have their certification, their stamp. So the engineering stamp is also a key leverage to making everybody collaborate, because if something was to happen, we're all in this together, right? So we want to avoid all these preventable situations and make sure that we dot all I's and we cross all T's, right? So we're safe and sound to move forward.
Well, let's talk about safety then. I mean, it's a great topic. I think the hard thing that when we start talking about safety, there's obviously different levels to that, right? There's simplicity in making sure you've got your airline cable on your lights and things like that. That is one element of safety, all the way up to and including obviously weather accommodations and crowd control and things like that. And it's almost hard to kind of pinpoint exactly what we mean when we're talking about safety, right? But one of the things is specifically with the stage in mind is obviously you talk about that rigging being important, but let's talk about the weather side, right? I mean, weather is unpredictable. The crowd gets really upset when you have to cancel shows and things like that, or the wind is over a certain miles per hour, or it's raining or whatever. Talk a little bit about, especially from your perspective, some of the things that you guys are doing to help prevent not only the failure of the gear, but also maybe having to find that nice balance of, hey, we really want to make sure the crowd's having a good time without putting them in danger.
Yeah. Well, you did mention like weather's unpredictable, but I mean, there are a bunch of professional companies out there doing like a great job at preventing what's coming our way, pinpointed for the event. All events that we work with on our end, it is required to have professional meteorologists that will support the event, so we can avoid. So basically, we can have some time to react in advance and put forward all the different thresholds that are preset and discussed with the promoter in regards to, hey, what are we going to do and at what point and when are we pulling the trigger to make sure that we have enough time to put everybody in a safe place, right, before all hell breaks loose. So we rely on those services to help us get there and to prevent. I was talking about communication beforehand. So the communication between all vendors is also key. So we can coordinate that dance nicely when that time comes, if that time comes. And how do you communicate this information to the crew, not the crew, but the fans on site? So it's a mix of all of this, I would say. So both being prepared, being aware, and communicate well amongst everybody.
Well, we had a chance to chat a little bit before the show, and one of the things that you mentioned to me was this idea of obviously the scenic and the LED walls being actually one of the major contributors, not only to the size of the stage, but the stability and even the requirements from a staging perspective. Talk about not only the video walls, but maybe some of the things that are driving the decisions on maybe it's a larger stage, maybe it's a more supported stage. Talk about some of those things that are driving some of those needs.
Well, we've seen a change in the past, I would say, 7 years, to structures getting better, bigger and bigger, with more scenic and larger video wall. I think the cost of the walls makes it a little more accessible as well, meaning that people want to go bigger, have bigger presence, video presence. And in the past, we used to have wind mitigation techniques where we were actually bringing either the decor down or the screens down. But now we're seeing decors that are as big as the stages and screens that are as big as the stage. So there's no more room to actually remove them, and there's no more time because, they're so big. They take so much time to actually install that even if you have professional weather service giving you a heads up that a storm's coming in an hour, like an hour is not enough time to react. So the consequences of this is it requires just more on the staging side. So more resistance, more weight, more anchoring point, more prepare. You have to be prepared in advance for all that stuff. And so I'd say the impact is there. It's a massive challenge for our industry because not everybody has the same understanding of the consequences of the wind push onto major structures like this. And it's difficult to integrate all different vendors to come up with a working solution. So I would say that for the next 5 years, this will be something that will be challenging for our live event industry. And we need to get together as a group because not a single company has the answer to it,
You talked about the next 5 years, and it would be remiss if I didn't give you a chance to plug the great work that Stageline's doing. What are some of those things that you guys are having to focus on in the next 5 to 10 years, and maybe some of the capabilities and technologies that you plan on rolling out in the long term?
Well, the obvious. Everything's getting bigger and stronger, so for sure we'll follow that trend. We're fortunate that we have a full-on R&D department working full-time on projects. So we have projects in the pipeline that will be coming out in 3 to 5 years from now. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose too much about them because I don't have no clue who's listening to your show at the moment, Ben. But one thing I can promise is it will be done with the same philosophy and the same design methodology that we've applied at Stageline for the past 35 years. That's one thing. Second thing, very recently, we've introduced a new line of mobile screen trailers. So we've just launched at LDI the ST100 for Screen Trailer 100. So ST100, really cool product for the deployment of a 24x14 screen within 15-30 minutes with a single operator, with the goal of supporting the needs for larger LED screens that are deployed safely and really efficiently. So that's one thing. And so along the same lines, we'll be building a full line of product to support these trailers, these screen trailers, different sizes, different models. So that's one thing that I can share because it's out there in the public.
Well, Pierre, I appreciate you sharing that with us. We would never ask you to break an NDA, especially on this show. The last thing we need is a lawsuit. But I'll tell you what, we're going to have you back on because I think that the topic today was my fault. I think I kept us too general, and we could dive in deep. There's some great meat on the bone, especially when you talk about weather specifically and safety, and then dealer and vendor management. We'll have you back on the show for sure, but we appreciate you coming on. Pierre-Luc Rompré from Stageline. Pierre, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Ben.
And thank you guys for watching. Be sure to tune in next time.